In the far reaches of eternity, where light itself dares not linger, there echoes a question that has haunted the Imperium since its birth. What price must mankind pay to survive its own salvation? They were not born. They were crafted, sculpted from flesh, faith, and fear. The Emperor's angels of death, the Adeptus Astartes. But beneath the myth, beneath the armor that glimmers with the light of dead stars, lies something far more horrifying than the galaxy's enemies. The truth of what they truly are. Their story begins not with glory, but with pain. Imagine a child taken from the streets of a hive city where the air burns the lungs and the sun is nothing more than a rumor. His eyes are hungry, his bones fragile, his soul unformed. The Imperium sees not a boy, but raw material. And so, he is taken. Not chosen. Taken. What follows is not training. His name is erased. His memories burned away. What remains is a weapon. An echo of humanity sculpted into something godlike and monstrous. And when the transformation is complete, he opens his eyes for the first time as a space marine. He breathes in air thick with incense and machine oil. He feels the weight of ceramite on his skin, the hum of power coursing through his armor. He is told he is free of weakness, fear, doubt. But in the hollow chambers of his mind, something human still stirs. A flicker of the boy who once was. It is there the true horror festers. The galaxy worships them as heroes. Planets sculpt statues in their image. Children pray to the angels of death, believing them to be divine. But the truth, whispered in the silence of the monasteries, is that the Space Marines are prisoners of their own perfection. They cannot feel love, they cannot dream, they do not age, nor do they truly live. Every thought, every heartbeat is chained to a single word: duty. Their brotherhood is forged not in friendship, but in indoctrination. Each Marine calls the others brother, yet knows that one day they may be ordered to burn an entire world together, or to die alone in the void, nameless, forgotten. There are no tears, no regrets, only obedience. Even death is not release, for in the Imperium, death itself is just another order to follow. Yet, for all their terror, the galaxy needs them. In the endless night of the 41st millennium, where human worlds are devoured by alien horrors, where chaos whispers from the warp, where faith itself decays into madness, the Space Marines are the last line. They are the Emperor's will made flesh, and they will not fail, because they cannot. But sometimes, they remember. On the battlefield amidst the fire and blood, a Marine might see a child hiding in the ruins, a boy with the same hollow eyes he once had. For a moment, the illusion cracks. The machine remembers the man. And in that heartbeat, he hesitates. That hesitation costs lives. It costs victory. It is heresy. When the battle ends, his brothers will find him kneeling among the corpses, whispering prayers not to the Emperor, but to the ghost of who he used to be. The chaplains will call it corruption. The apothecaries will remove the gene seed from his corpse, so that the chapter may live on. His story will never be told, because the Imperium cannot afford for its angels to be human. They tell us the Astartes are pure, that they know no fear, no mercy, but purity in the Imperium is not holiness, it is the absence of choice. Fear is not unknown to them, it is forbidden. Mercy is not alien, it is exterminated. Each Marine's soul is buried under layers of doctrine, chains of faith so heavy that even gods would break beneath them. And yet, within those chains, some still dream. There are whispers of chapters that question their purpose, of Space Marines who see the Imperium not as salvation, but as the cage it has always been. They fight on, because there is no other way, but every bolt shell they fire, every heretic they burn, drives the blade of doubt deeper. Some have turned to chaos. Some have vanished into the void. Others, more quietly, simply obey. Their rebellion hidden in silence, their humanity buried under 1,000 oaths. And still they are revered. To the common man they are gods. To the ecclesiarchy they are miracles of flesh. To the Inquisition they are tools. And to themselves they are nothing. The cost of their perfection is the erasure of self. No laughter, no love, no legacy. Only the cold echo of the Emperor's will. In their fortress monasteries the silence is sacred. Cathedrals carved into mountains hum with hymns sung by servitors who no longer remember their own names. The air smells of ozone and incense, the glow of votive candles flickering against stone walls, engraved with the names of the fallen. Thousands upon thousands of brothers who died, forgotten by all but their chapter. Each Marine passes by those names in silence. He feels nothing. He is not allowed to. But sometimes at the edge of hearing, he imagines the names whisper back. When the stars burn and the warp screams, when the light of humanity flickers on the brink of extinction, the Astartes descend from the skies. To those below, they are angels. To those who fight beside them, they are machines of death. And to those who understand, who see the truth, they are the Emperor's greatest tragedy. For they are not saviors. They are reminders. Reminders that the price of order is freedom. That the cost of survival is the soul. Each battle they fight is not for glory, but for the illusion that mankind still deserves to exist. Every world they save becomes another world enslaved to the Imperium's endless fear. And when the guns fall silent, and the banners are raised, and the dead are buried beneath the ash, the Space Marines return to their ships, to the cold dark of the void, where victory feels indistinguishable from damnation. They kneel before statues of the Emperor, their voices echoing through vast halls of marble and iron. They recite litanies of devotion, but behind every word lies an unspoken truth, that the Emperor they worship has been silent for 10,000 years. Their prayers are unanswered, their faith is blind, and still, they fight. Because the alternative, to question, is to fall. Yet some do question. Some look into the abyss and see not glory but despair. They see the Imperium's rot, its cruelty, its blind worship of a corpse. They wonder if the Emperor's dream was ever meant for mankind, or if it was always meant to devour it. These whispers are heresy. But heresy, like faith, cannot be killed, only buried. There was one such chapter, whose name has been struck from the records. They began as all others, loyal, pure, unyielding. But somewhere, between 1,000 wars and 1,000,000 dead, they began to ask, what are we saving? They fought for humanity, but humanity no longer existed. Only obedience, only fear, only faith without understanding. When the Inquisition came for them, the stars burned for 7 days. No survivors, no bodies, only silence. Their homeworld was declared exterminatus, purged of all life. But there are rumors still, that in the darkness between stars, their ships yet drift, carrying Marines who remember. Marines who no longer serve the Emperor, but the memory of what he was meant to be. Perhaps it is just a myth. Perhaps it is the last flicker of hope in a galaxy where hope itself is treason. And yet, when the battlefields fall quiet and the smoke clears, some say they've seen them. Armored giants standing among the ruins, their insignia scorched away, their eyes burning not with zeal, but with sorrow. They do not speak, they do not stay. But when they vanish into the void, a message is sometimes found, carved into the stone or painted in blood. We remember. No one knows what it means. The Inquisition denies their existence. The chapters do not speak of them. But deep within the vaults of terror, there are sealed records, documents marked by the sigil of the sigillite himself, that hint at an ancient truth buried since the days of the Great Crusade, a truth that could shatter the very faith of the Imperium. For if the angels of death were made to save humanity, what happens when they remember what it means to be human? The transmission began with static. 1,000 vox lines across the segmentum obscurus hissed with whispers that should not have existed, distorted echoes of voices long thought extinguished. Among them, a single phrase repeated like a pulse through the void. We remember. On the bridge of the vigilant dawn, Captain Astor Varian of the Ultramarines stood motionless. The light from the hololith flickered across his features, a face carved from devotion and exhaustion. Behind his calm eyes, doubt stirred like a storm beneath ice. Reports came from every sector, ghost signatures, fleeting warp anomalies, and sightings of armor that bore no chapter markings. Each report was dismissed by the Administratum as superstition. But Varian knew better. He had seen them once, on Calth, in the ashes. The ship's chaplain entered, a figure draped in black and bone, Crozius clasped like a relic of judgment. "Captain," he rasped, "the crew speaks heresy. They whisper that the Emperor's angels walk without banners." Varian's gaze did not shift. "Perhaps they do," he murmured. "And perhaps they are the only ones still following his will." On Terra, the ecclesiarchy gathered in their golden towers, debating faith while 1,000 worlds burned unseen. Within the vaulted halls of the Adeptus Ministorum, the air shimmered with incense and hypocrisy. A cardinal of the outer spires slammed his hand against the marble altar. "Blasphemy spreads through the stars. These rememberers defile his image." Across from him, an aged confessor whispered, "Or perhaps they remember what we have forgotten, that faith is not fear." The silence that followed was heresy. Moments later, the confessor's name was struck from every archive. On the shrine world of Eltanar, pilgrims walked barefoot across glass plains under the watch of towering cathedrals. They prayed to the angels of death, their voices trembling with reverence. But when the sky darkened and the drop pods fell, the angels who emerged bore no colors, no sigils. Their armor was scarred, blackened, ancient. They offered no words. They simply knelt before the statue of the Emperor, not in worship, but in mourning. The priests called for the guard. By dawn, the cathedrals burned, the statues fell. The pilgrims fled into the wastes, whispering the words left behind in blood across the altar stones. "He is not dead. He is forsaken." In the void above Eltanar, an inquisitorial vessel observed from afar. Inquisitor Myra Thale stood within her sanctum, surrounded by data scrolls and hololithic fragments of forbidden knowledge. Her eyes were sleepless, her faith brittle. For months, she had pursued these unmarked warriors, the Rememberers, as rumor named them. Each sighting brought a new contradiction. They fought chaos, yet refused orders. They defended civilians, yet destroyed shrines. Her acolyte asked quietly, "If they are traitors, why do they protect the innocent?" Thaler answered without turning, "Because sometimes heresy wears the face of mercy." Far beyond the Emperor's light, in a derelict fortress monastery drifting through the void, the truth waited. Its halls were silent, but alive with ghosts, voices encoded into the walls, fragments of prayers recorded by dying brothers. A marine knelt before a broken statue of the Emperor. His armor was scarred beyond repair, his insignia erased. He removed his helmet, revealing eyes that remembered too much. His name, once shouted in victory, was now forbidden. He whispered to the silence, "We were made to save mankind, and now mankind kneels before a corpse." Another voice answered from the shadows, cold, weary, resolute. "Then we must decide if we are still his angels, or his mistake. On the world of Verith Prime, a war raged not for territory, but for faith. Rebel Guard regiments fought Imperial loyalists in the streets of hive cities where statues of the Emperor collapsed under artillery fire. Each side claimed divine sanction. Each prayed before slaughter. In the ruins of the governor's palace, a single space marine walked among the dead, his armor unmarked, his blade dripping with both loyalist and heretic blood. A dying soldier reached for him. "Who do you serve?" The marine paused. "Humanity," he said softly. Then he vanished into the smoke. The High Lords of Terror convened in panic. The sigil of the Inquisition burned red on every transmission. The rumors could no longer be ignored. Unmarked Astartes were appearing across the segmentum solar itself, always after battles, always leaving words of remembrance. One lord declared them traitors, another called for extermination, but one, the oldest among them, simply whispered, "If they are traitors, why do the people call them saviors?" On the forge world of Calax 9, tech priests chanted to their machines, blind to the galaxy's decay. But deep within the data crypts, a forgotten Mechanicus Magos uncovered a sealed fragment, a record dated to the Great Crusade itself. The file bore the sigil of Malcador, the Sigillite. Its message was simple. Should the angels remember what was lost, mankind may yet find its soul, or destroy it utterly. Before he could transmit it, the Magos was executed by Skitari without question. His name was erased. The message never reached Terra. Captain Varian's ship entered the Eltanar system days later. The world was ash. No Vox signal, no life. Only the remnants of burned cathedrals and shattered icons. A lone signal pulsed from orbit, an ancient distress beacon encoded in a dialect of High Gothic long forgotten. When the signal was decrypted, it contained no coordinates, no plea for rescue. Only 3 words: "He still sleeps." The chaplain trembled. "That cannot be. He watches us always." Varian looked into the endless dark of the void. "Does he, brother, or have we mistaken silence for command?" Inquisitor Thale arrived soon after, drawn by the same beacon. Her ship descended into the ruins where the unmarked Astartes had once stood. At the heart of a cathedral reduced to rubble, she found a mural, painted not by a priest, but by a marine's own hand. It depicted the Emperor not upon the golden throne, but walking among men. His armor was cracked, his face sorrowful, his hand extended to a dying child. At the bottom, written in Litanic script, was a phrase that chilled her soul. He never wished to be worshipped, to be. That night, the Inquisitor dreamed. She saw Terra burning, the golden throne empty, the Astronomicon extinguished. Yet humanity survived, free, unbound, and unafraid. When she awoke, she could still hear the voice that had spoken through the dream, calm, ancient, filled with both love and regret. "Myra," it said, "you have mistaken my silence for absence." The next day, the Vigilant Dawn intercepted a transmission marked as Exterminatus Authorization. Target, Eltanar. Inquisitor Thyla was aboard, her face pale as the order flickered across the display. "They would burn the truth to preserve their faith," she whispered. Varian turned toward her. "Then faith is the fire." Against all law, all doctrine, he refused the order. When the command came from Terra demanding obedience, he silenced the Vox. His ship turned away from Eltanar's dying orbit, carrying both guilt and revelation into the endless dark. Days later, aboard the ship's chapel, Varian stood before his brothers. "Brothers," he said quietly, "we have fought for a God who has not spoken in 10,000 years. We have killed in his name, bled in his shadow, burned worlds for his silence. But what if he asked none of it? What if we have chained him to the very throne meant to free us?" Some turned away, some bowed in fear, but a few, only a few, nodded in silence. Outside, the void shimmered. The warp whispered with voices not of chaos, but of remembrance. Across the Imperium, reports began to multiply. Entire guard regiments laid down their arms. Monasteries fell silent. Priests abandoned their sermons to walk among the poor. On hive worlds and agri-worlds alike, the people began to whisper prayers no longer to the Emperor, but to the man he once was. And always, in the aftermath, appeared those unmarked warriors, not to lead, not to command, but simply to witness. In the depths of the Imperial Palace on Terra, a senior custodian entered the sanctum of the throne. There, amidst the hum of ancient machinery and the psychic storms of the Astronomicon, the Emperor sat, unmoving, yet alive. For the first time in centuries, a flicker of golden light pulsed from his withered eyes. A single tear, thin as glass, fell upon the throne. It hissed like acid as it touched the metal, and somewhere in the void, every psyker across the Imperium shuddered as the Astronomicon dimmed for just a heartbeat. Inquisitor Thael felt it too. She stood before a viewport, watching the stars tremble. "He is stirring," she breathed. Varian joined her, silent. His armor bore the same sigil as the Rememberers now, a broken halo around a human hand. "What happens if he wakes?" he asked. Thael's gaze never left the stars. "Then the Imperium must face what it has become." On the world of Charon's Gate, a high-ranking ecclesiarch prepared his sermon before a crowd of billions. As he opened his mouth, the sky tore open with light, warp light, pure and blinding. A figure descended through the storm, unmarked, unbound, armor cracked, wings of fire unfurling behind him. The crowd fell to their knees in terror and awe. When the figure spoke, his voice echoed across the planet like thunder. "I am not your god," he said. "I am your reminder." And as his eyes turned toward the heavens, the Astronomicon flickered once more. Across the galaxy, ships lost their way. Astropaths screamed. And in the ruins of forgotten worlds, the words appeared again, carved by unseen hands into stone and steel alike. "He remembers." The galaxy burns like a shrine, collapsing under its own prayers. Everywhere, faith becomes fire. The Emperor's light, once steady as the heartbeat of humanity, flickers, uncertain. Ships drift lost in the warp. Worlds vanish mid-sentence, their names swallowed by static. Even Terra trembles, its spires cracking under the weight of unanswered devotion. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Imperium seems to breathe, and that breath is fear. In the ruins of the ecclesiarchal palace, pilgrims gather in silence. Their hymns are whispers now, shaped more by doubt than belief. One by one, they extinguish their candles, not in despair, but in mourning. A child asks her mother, "If he is not a god, who will save us?" The mother stares into the dark. "Perhaps," she says, "we were never meant to be saved." Aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Captain Varian stands before a viewport of fractured glass. The Astronomicon pulses weakly beyond the void, a wounded sun. His armor bears no sigil, no purity seal. Around him his brothers pray in silence, but their words feel weightless. He turns to Inquisitor Thael, her eyes red from sleeplessness. "He's stirring," she says. "Every psyker feels it. Some have gone mad, others sing his name as if they hear him again." Varian's voice is iron. "And what does he say?" Thael hesitates. "Nothing, only sorrow." On the hive world of Damaris, the first schisms begin. Half the planetary clergy renounce the creed, proclaiming that the Emperor's divinity was a lie forged by frightened men. The other half denounce them as heretics, and the streets run red with holy blood. When the Arbites open fire on the mob, the people do not scatter, they chant, "He remembers, he remembers." Their voices drown in gunfire, but their echo lingers long after. In the Librarius of Macragge, the Ultramarines consult the Codex Astartes for guidance, and find nothing. No verse for the death of belief. Chief Librarian Tigurius gazes into the warp and sees a vision. The librarian weeps, for he understands. Godhood was never his choice. At the edge of Segmentum Solar, a new war ignites. The Black Templars declare a second crusade, swearing to burn every world that denies the Emperor's divinity. Against them rise the Rememberers, silent, resolute, fighting not for rebellion but for truth. Their warships clash in the void, hymns colliding with silence. When the Templars board the Rememberers' flagship, they find the halls lined with statues of men, each carved in sorrow, not reverence. One Templar, bloodied and trembling, removes his helm to face his enemy. "You blaspheme," he snarls. "You defy the Emperor's eternal word." The Rememberer kneels before him. "Brother," he says softly, "I seek not to defy him, only to free him." The Templar hesitates. His blade lowers. In that hesitation, the ship burns. In the warp, the Astronomicon flickers again. Psychers across the Imperium convulse as one. Some scream prayers, others see visions. 1,000,000 minds behold the same image, the golden throne cracking. From within the fissures, light spills, not holy, not divine, but raw, living energy. A whisper ripples through the Immaterium, echoing across time itself. He never wanted to be worshipped. On Terra, the High Lords convene in terror. Vox communions fail. Their advisors are blind with dread. One by one, reports arrive. Entire chapters refusing orders. Guard regiments deserting. Forge worlds sealing themselves from Imperial command. The Ecclesiarch's voice trembles as he declares, "This is not heresy. It is the unraveling of faith itself." But the Grand Inquisitor speaks softly. "No, my lord. It is the return of truth." Inquisitor Thal's ship drifts through the silent void. She has not slept in days. She dreams instead. Dreams not her own. In them, she walks through the catacombs beneath the Imperial Palace. The air hums with ancient power. Chains of gold run deep into the bedrock, pulsing faintly with life. She follows them to their end, where a great heart beats within iron and pain. From the darkness, a voice like thunder and tears says, "They bound me for mercy. They worship to keep me asleep." She wakes screaming. Varian finds her in the chapel, staring at the flame of a single candle. "If this is true," he says, "then all we've fought for is built on a lie." Thale shakes her head. "No. The lie built us. The truth will unmake us." On the dead world of Cadia's ruins, something stirs. Warp storms recede around its shattered core. From the black soil, figures rise. Giants clad in fractured armor, their eyes burning with gold light. They do not bear the mark of chaos or the Emperor. They are something else, something between. When Imperial scouts approach, the figures do not attack. They kneel, their voices rising in unison. He remembers, "We must make ready." Everywhere omens bloom. Stars die and reignite. The warp howls in strange harmonies. The Sisters of Battle of Ophelia VII awaken to find their sacred relics weeping blood. In the dust of their sanctum, words appear. Faith without truth is rot. Some fall to their knees in despair, others in fury. And through it all, the Emperor dreams. He dreams of the Great Crusade, not as conquest, but as a vision of unity. He dreams of laughter, of peace, of men and women walking beneath suns unshrouded by fear. He dreams of being mortal. When he opens his eyes within that dream, He sees what his Imperium has become, a labyrinth of worship and tyranny choking on his name. He weeps golden tears that burn through eternity. Inquisitor Thaler feels them too. Her psychic senses flare with unbearable clarity. She sees every act of faith, every slaughter, every whispered prayer, all feeding the throne like a wound that refuses to heal. She whispers, "Our worship sustains his prison." Varian stares into the void where the Astronomicon falters. "If we stop believing," he says, "he dies." Thale's gaze is cold. "No, Captain. If we keep believing, he never wakes." The realization spreads like contagion. Faith itself becomes the weapon of his imprisonment. The churches, the wars, the endless sacrifice, it all binds him. Humanity's devotion has become its own chain. In the bowels of terror, the custodes gather. They know what is coming. They have guarded a corpse for 10,000 years, and now that corpse stirs. Some kneel in awe. Others turn their blades on each other in silent fury. "Better a dead god than a living man," one hisses. The other answers, "Better a free man than an eternal lie." On Armiger 9, Father Halwin's candle flares once more. The flame becomes a voice. He remembers. The priest smiles weakly. "Then we are forgiven?" The flame replies, "Not forgiven, awakened." As the words fade, the planet splits. Light erupts from its core, pure, golden, deafening. In its radiance, every soul sees the same vision, the golden throne collapsing, its metal turning to dust, the Emperor stepping forward, no longer bound, no longer divine, only alive. The Astronomicon dies, but in its place, a new light spreads across the stars, not centralized, not singular, but scattered through every human heart. 1,000,000 tiny suns igniting all at once. Yet the cost is unimaginable. Warp storms devour half the segmentum obscurus. Thousands of worlds fall into silence. The ecclesiarchy fractures into cults of denial and revelation. The Inquisition turns upon itself. And amidst the chaos, the Rememberers stand at the center of history's breaking point. Varian watches as the stars burn in gold fire. "This is the end," he says. Thaler shakes her head. "No, Captain, this is the first true dawn." Then she hears it. Every vox, every psychic channel filled with the same whisper, the same voice echoing through the warp, "I am awake." Across the galaxy, psychers collapse. Astropaths go blind. The warp itself bends, reshaping, screaming with rebirth. The Emperor, no longer a god, no longer chained, walks unseen among his creation, remembering every sin done in his name. And somewhere, deep within the Imperium, a new question is born, spoken not by men, but by the galaxy itself. Can humanity survive the mercy of its own god? The stars answer with silence. The galaxy trembles like a wounded animal. The stars flicker, uneasy, as if aware of something vast and ancient stirring beneath the surface of reality. Across the void, ships drift through the graveyard of broken empires, their hulls scarred by warp fire and memory. The Emperor has awakened, and nothing remains unchanged. On Terra, the Golden Throne is dust. The silence that follows is unbearable. Custodians stand in motionless ranks before the empty dais, their armor dim, their faces hidden behind impassive masks. None dare to speak, for there are no words for what they have witnessed. Some fall to their knees, others remove their helms, weeping as they realize they no longer guard a god, but a ghost of their own creation. Inquisitor Thale stands among them. Her eyes, once sharp with purpose, are hollow now. She can still feel his presence in her mind, not divine, but human, raw and unbearable. The voice that once thundered like a storm now whispers like regret. "You bound me with love," it says, "and love became your prison." She cannot answer. Her faith was built on the weight of that throne, and now, freed of its burden, she feels only the cold of meaning unraveling. Captain Varian kneels before a shattered shrine aboard the Vigilant Dawn. The statues of saints lie in pieces around him, their faces worn smooth by centuries of prayer. He picks up a fragment of stone, a hand raised in benediction, and closes his eyes. "We fought for you," he whispers. "We became monsters for you." But no answer comes, only the distant hum of dying reactors, the sound of a ship bleeding out into space. He wonders if perhaps that silence is the answer. Across the Imperium, worlds burn not from invasion, but from revelation. Some kneel in joy, proclaiming the Emperor reborn. Others curse his name, calling him deceiver, destroyer, false god. The ecclesiarchy splinters into 1,000 sects, each declaring themselves the true keepers of his will. Pilgrims march by the billions to Holy Terra, only to find its gates sealed, its towers empty, its sky lit by the fire of rebellion. In the warp, storms twist and coil like serpents of madness. The ruinous powers roar in fury as their oldest prisoner stirs. Khorne's laughter curdles into rage. Tzeentch's schemes unravel into chaos. Nurgle's gardens wither under a light they cannot bear. And Slaanesh, ever silent, weeps, for the song of humanity has changed, and even the warp listens in fear. The Rememberers gather in the ruins of Cadia, drawn by instinct, by faith, by something older than both. Around them, the resurrected warriors, the golden-eyed revenants, speak in tongues no human remembers. Their leader, a being who once bore the mark of the Astartes, raises his blade toward the stars. "He is free," he says, his voice trembling. "Now we must face what freedom costs." Inquisitor Thal's dreams return, sharper, brighter, more cruel. She walks through the remnants of the palace again, but the chains are gone. In their place, she sees paths, thousands of them, stretching across eternity. Each one leads to a future soaked in blood. Some brighter, some darker, but all heavy with consequence. "Is this your will?" she asks the unseen presence. "No," comes the reply, quiet and distant. "This is yours." She wakes with tears on her face, unsure if they are hers or his. On the battlefields of Damaris, the Black Templars fight not for faith, but for memory. They slaughter those who renounce his divinity, yet hesitate when facing those who claim to serve his humanity. "If he is man," their marshal cries, "then all we have done is sin." But his chaplain answers, "If he is man, brother, then he understands." The Templars weep as they burn the city. Varian stares at the stars, their light flickering like dying candles. He hears the whispers through the Vox, the confusion of a galaxy without command. "Who speaks for him now?" one admiral asks. "No one," comes the answer. "He no longer needs to be spoken for." Yet still, fleets mobilize, armies march, the inertia of faith is not easily undone. The Mechanicus trembles. For millennia, they worshipped the Omnissiah, never realizing he was the same God they had chained. Now their forges stand silent, their prayers reduced to static. Magi weep oil and blood as their cogitators refuse communion. In the depths of Mars, a voice of living light whispers through the data stream. "You built eternity from fear. Let it burn." On Ophelia 7th, the Sisters of Battle march barefoot through their burning cathedrals. Their armor is blackened, their relics shattered. The warp ripples as if breathing. Worlds slip in and out of existence. Astropaths scream of seeing the Emperor not as light, but as shadow, walking among the ruins of his empire, silent and sorrowful. In one vision, he kneels beside a dying soldier on a nameless world. The soldier's last words, "Was it worth it, my lord?" And the Emperor, voice shaking, replies, "Not yet." Thala records everything. Her journals are filled with contradictions, visions of a man who could end all suffering, and yet chooses not to. A god who could silence war and yet lets it rage. She understands finally that his awakening is not salvation, it is reckoning. Every life taken in his name, every soul lost to his cause, echoes back into the heart of creation. Varian receives a summons from Terra. The custodians have spoken, a council is to convene. The survivors of faith, the remnants of command, all will gather to decide what remains of the Imperium. As his ship approaches the ruined world, he sees the glow of a new dawn rising from the horizon, gold and crimson like the bleeding sun. The custodians await in silence. Their master is gone, their purpose undone. One steps forward, removing his helm. "We have guarded an empire of corpses," he says. "Now we must guard its soul." Varian bows, unsure whether to call this hope or heresy. Inquisitor Thale joins him, her face pale, her voice steady. "It begins again," she murmurs. "A war not of faith, but of truth." Outside, the void stirs. Something immense moves in the warp, a shape beyond gods, beyond reason. Its presence feels both familiar and alien, like the echo of a forgotten promise. The Astronomicon, once dead, pulses faintly once more, not as a beacon of worship, but of warning. Every psyker across the galaxy screams in unison. The Emperor's voice fills their minds, not divine, not commanding, but pleading. "Do not let me become what they fear." Then silence. Varian grips the hilt of his sword. "He is not gone," he whispers. "He is waiting." Thale looks to the heavens, where the warp shimmers like the eye of a storm. "For what?" she asks. Varian's gaze hardens. "For judgment." In that moment, across 1,000,000 worlds, the sky darkens. The stars dim. The warp winds tighten, spiraling toward Terra. Pilgrims look upward and see the heavens split open, light spilling through like blood from a wound. The last remnants of the Golden Throne ignite once more, not as prison, but as doorway. Something approaches, something vast, inevitable, sacred, and terrible. The galaxy holds its breath, and for the first time in 10,000 years, time itself hesitates, trembling before what comes next. The storm has arrived. The storm breaks. The sky above Terra is no longer sky. It is a wound torn through time and faith, spilling gold and black in equal measure. Lightning arcs in silence across the heavens. Every cathedral trembles, every fortress hums with the sound of prayers that no longer know their meaning. The air tastes like burnt incense and blood. Across the void, fleets converge, 1,000,000 ships drawn by gravity or prophecy. Imperial vessels, heretic craft, Xenos shadows, all circling the dying light of humanity's home. Vox channels scream with 1,000 languages, all saying the same thing. He has returned. Inquisitor Thale stands upon the battlements of the ruined Imperial Palace. The wind tears at her robes, scattering ashes into the dawn. Below, billions gather, pilgrims, soldiers, fanatics, staring up at the storm. Some cry out his name, others curse it. All feel the same truth rising in their bones. The age of gods is ending. Captain Varian walks beside her, his armor cracked, his blade dull. He has fought for empires, for oaths, for ghosts, but never for this. "Do you hear it?" he asks. Thale closes her eyes. The storm speaks in voices, some human, some older than stars. Within it, she hears the heartbeat of something vast and awakening. "He is close," she whispers, "and he is not what we remember." Then the throne ignites. The light surges from beneath the palace, searing through the crust of Terra. It blinds, burns, purifies. Custodians fall to their knees, unable to look. The crowds scream and pray, the air trembling with devotion and terror. The light takes shape, no longer a corpse, no longer a god, but a man of impossible presence, golden and terrible. He does not speak. He does not need to. His gaze alone stills the storm. Every soul feels it. The truth. He was never divine. He was the dream of humanity, twisted by need and worship into something unrecognizable. He sees their faith as chains, their loyalty as shackles of fear. And yet, he loves them still. Varian falls to one knee. His voice breaks. "My lord, we were your sword, your will." The Emperor looks down at him, sorrow in his eyes. "You were my children, my sin." Above them, the warp opens fully. From its depths, demonic legions pour forth, drawn by the collapse of belief. A tide of madness, shrieking and glorious, sweeping across the void. The ruinous powers descend not as shadows, but as truths made flesh. For millennia they were worshipped through hate, lust and war, and now they come to claim their tithe. Terror burns again. Varian leads his brothers into battle, their bolters roaring beneath the falling sky. Custodians join them, blades flashing like suns. Sisters of battle march through flame, singing dirges through broken vox speakers. The dead rise and fight beside the living. Even the Mechanicus unleash their sacred machines, engines of faith and terror that tear through demons by the thousands. Everywhere, the war becomes something more than mortal. A war of belief, of memory, of identity. For every demon slain, a prayer dies. For every soldier who falls, a truth is born. Thale stands before the Emperor as the battle rages. "You could end this," she pleads. "You could unmake them." His voice is quiet, almost human. "To end them, I must end what feeds them. I must end us." She understands then. His awakening was not salvation, it was surrender. He came not to rule, but to die. Varian feels it too. A pressure in the air, a shift in gravity. The warp howls as the Emperor steps forward, his radiance dimming. He raises his hand and time itself hesitates. Every warrior freezes mid-motion, every demon halts mid-scream. The galaxy holds its breath. He speaks, and the words are not sound, but truth. "I am the light that blinded you, the God that failed you. I set you free." The warp collapses inward. The demons dissolve like mist under dawn. The storm fractures into silence. Light and shadow twist together, forming a single blinding sphere around terror. Thale watches as the Emperor walks into the heart of it. Each step tears at reality, unraveling the strands of faith that bound the Imperium together. Statues crumble, churches collapse, whole systems fall into stillness as the Astronomicon fades for the last time. Varian calls out, "Father, don't leave us." But his voice is lost to the wind. The Emperor turns once, and for the briefest moment, he smiles. Not as a god, not as a ruler, but as a man remembering what it means to hope. Then, he is gone. The light bursts outward, a final sun blooming across the galaxy. Warp storms vanish, demons scream and die. Every soul feels the warmth for a heartbeat, and then nothing. Silence. Terror lies in ruins. The sky is clear for the first time in 10,000 years. Smoke drifts through the broken towers, carrying the scent of iron and ash. Varian kneels in the dust, his armor scorched, his hands empty. Around him, millions lie dead, some smiling, some still praying. The war has ended, but no one can say who won. Thale approaches him, her face streaked with soot. "He's gone," she says. "Truly gone." Varian shakes his head. "No. He's in all of them now, in all of us." She looks toward the horizon where the sun rises, faint, pale, but unbroken. "Then what happens next?" He answers without looking. "We decide." Across the galaxy, humanity awakens to a new silence. No god, no light, no Astronomicon to guide their ships through the void. Yet somehow the warp is calmer, quieter, as if even madness itself is waiting. On Mars, the forges begin to hum again, not in prayer, but in understanding. On Macragge, the ultramarines light new beacons, not for faith, but for unity. On Ophelia 7, the surviving sisters rebuild their cathedrals as sanctuaries for the living, not temples for the dead. The Imperium does not fall. It changes. Slowly, painfully, like a body learning to breathe without chains. Inquisitor Thale records her final words in the log of the Vigilant Dawn. "We were children of a god that never wanted worship. Now perhaps we can learn to be human again." She pauses, then adds quietly, "But the galaxy remembers what gods are, and memory is never merciful." Varian walks the empty halls of the ship, hearing whispers in the dark, not demonic, not divine, just echoes of men who fought believing they were eternal. He finds a chapel untouched by the fires and lights a single candle. Its flame flickers weakly, then steadies. Outside, the stars begin to move again. Slowly, hesitantly, like hearts relearning how to beat. And somewhere far beyond the veil of the warp, something stirs, neither god nor man, but the echo of both. A promise unfinished, a dream unburied. The whisper comes like breath on glass. "I am not gone, I am remembering." The stars flare once, briefly as if answering, then fade to calm. The galaxy exhales, the war is over. The age of gods is done, and in the silence that follows, something eternal shifts, quietly, irrevocably, into a new beginning. The stars burn softer now. The galaxy, once a chorus of endless war and worship, drifts into quiet. It is the silence after a scream, the breath the universe takes before remembering how to exist again. The worlds that remain circle their suns like pilgrims around an altar long abandoned, uncertain whether they pray or simply survive. The fires of terror have gone cold. Its ruins gleam faintly under a pale dawn. What was once the beating heart of faith now lies still, vast and hollow, its cathedrals half buried in dust. The wind carries the faint echo of hymns no one remembers the words to. Inquisitor Thale walks the causeways of the shattered imperial palace, her boots echoing against stone that once trembled with the footsteps of saints and kings. The golden statues that lined the hallways have been reduced to featureless shapes, their faces melted by the heat of divinity unmade. She passes a cracked mural of the Emperor, half shadow, half light. She cannot tell if he is ascending or falling. Perhaps both. The air smells of incense and rust. She stops at the edge of what was once the golden throne. It is gone now. Only a hollow circle remains, surrounded by the faint shimmer of energy, like the memory of light that refuses to die. She kneels, not in prayer, but in recognition. The silence is sacred in its own way. It feels heavier than any hymn. She whispers, "We did not understand you. We only knew how to worship." Her words vanish into the stillness, but somewhere deep in her mind, a quiet thought answers. "And in worship, you forgot how to live." Captain Varian stands outside, gazing across the ruins of the city. His armor is scarred, his banner tattered. He is the last of his chapter, though he no longer calls himself Space Marine. The gene seed still burns in his veins, but he feels mortal. The weight of eternity has lifted from his shoulders, and in its absence, he feels both lighter and smaller. He thinks of the countless worlds they saved, the countless more they destroyed. "All for him," he murmurs. And now that him is gone, the question lingers like smoke. What now? He looks toward the horizon. Children play amid the rubble. They chase each other through the ruins of temples, laughing. Their laughter sounds like rebellion against the sorrow of history. Varian smiles faintly. Perhaps this is how humanity heals, not through gods, but through forgetting. On Mars, the forges burn again. not with holy fire but with purpose. The priesthood has shed its robes of red faith and taken up the mantle of understanding. They study the machines not as relics, but as companions. The Omnissiah's silence has become their freedom. Some weep as they hear the gears hum like lullabies for the first time in millennia. On Ophelia 7, the sisters rebuild. Their cathedrals rise not toward the heavens, but outward, shelters for the wounded, sanctuaries for the lost. They paint murals of ordinary people instead of saints. A sister pauses before one of these new paintings, a mother holding her child beneath a dying sun, and feels something warm bloom in her chest. Not faith, not devotion, something smaller, truer. Love, perhaps. Across the void, the remnants of the Imperial Navy drift between stars. No astropath guides them, no astronomicon burns to show the way. Yet somehow the ships find their paths. Captains chart their courses by instinct, by memory, by the faint pull of gravity that feels like hope. They call it the quiet tide. And when the young crewmen ask how they know where to go, the veterans smile and say, "The Emperor taught us to see in the dark." The warp itself is changed. Where it once screamed with hunger and deceit, it now whispers in mournful tones, like an ocean remembering its storms. Demons still linger in its depths, but even they seem quieter, wary. The gods of chaos do not die, but they have grown distant, reduced perhaps by the absence of worship. For even in damnation they depended on belief. Thaela records these things. She has become the chronicler of the Imperium that was, the remembrancer of its fall. Her quill scratches softly over parchment salvaged from the archives. The Emperor's final gift, she writes, was not salvation, but the chance to begin again. He unmade himself so that we might learn the weight of our own will. Perhaps this is what faith was meant to be, not obedience, but the courage to act without certainty. Varian visits her sometimes. They speak little. Words feel too fragile for the truths they carry. One evening they stand upon the highest tower, watching the stars emerge through the smoke. "Do you think he still sees us?" she asks. Varian's eyes follow the faint shimmer of the Astronomicon's remnants, a soft pulse, not a beacon but a heartbeat. "If he does," he says, "I think he's finally at peace." In the far reaches of the galaxy, on worlds untouched by the wars of gods, small colonies flourish. Humanity spreads quietly, without banners or blessings. They build homes instead of temples, gardens instead of fortresses. They tell stories of an age when men called another man divine. Their children listen, eyes wide, and ask, "Was he real?" The elders smile, uncertain. "Perhaps," they answer. "But even if he wasn't, we believed, and that made us strong." The old symbols fade. The Aquila is still carved on ancient walls, but it no longer commands reverence. It has become a relic of a time when mankind needed something greater than itself to endure. Now, perhaps, they are learning that endurance was always within them. Thael's final entry is written with a trembling hand. "I have seen the end of gods," she writes, "and in that ending, I found the beginning of humanity." She pauses, staring out at the endless black beyond Terra's ruined towers. If he was our light, then perhaps the truest devotion is learning to walk without it. Her ink runs dry. The page glows faintly in the candlelight, the words dissolving into shadow. Somewhere outside, a storm gathers over the horizon, gentle and warm. Rain falls upon the bones of the Imperial Palace, washing away centuries of ash. Varian kneels beneath the open sky, his hands raised, not in prayer, but in gratitude. He whispers the names of his fallen brothers. He whispers the name of the Emperor. And then, softly, he whispers his own. Because even a soldier must remember who he is when the war is over. The stars are watching, They always have, but now they feel closer, almost kind. The galaxy is vast, wounded, alive. Somewhere beyond the edge of sight, something stirs, a shadow, a memory, a breath. The faintest echo of a voice, I am not gone, I am becoming. And in that echo lies the question that will haunt every soul who survives. Was it faith that destroyed us, or faith that kept us alive long enough to change? No one knows. Perhaps no one ever will. The last line of Thal's chronicle fades into darkness. The Emperor is silent, humanity speaks. The universe exhales, the story ends. Like, subscribe, share, and tell me in the quiet between stars, what do you believe?